I've had so many issues just trying to get this video started. I've restarted at least 4 times, but hopefully 4th time is a charm. I'm a little bit tired. I waited a little too long in the day to start this video, but hopefully everything goes smoothly and I can just get this video done with, because I don't know, I'm just like over it at this point. Anyways, let's just get right into the video, okay? Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Asan Bayha, but if that's too much of a tongue twister, then you can call me Ocean B. So, as you guys can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be talking about vulnerability today. And I think this is like episode 7 in the series, so welcome. If you've been here since the beginning, thank you. It's probably my fam, my mother, you know, the close ones. But if you're just new to this channel, I encourage you to maybe see episode 1 just to see what this channel is about. But I don't think most of the episodes don't need to follow each other, so you should be okay to like start here. But let's just get right into the video. So I think I like to start my video. The first thing I'm going to do is, what is vulnerability? Vulnerability, if we have to simply define it, is allowing access to you in a way that can cause you harm, allowing access to you that does ensure your security. Vulnerability just means that you're taking a risk by allowing people or something, just giving the opportunity for a person or thing, object or space to affect you, hurt you, damage you in any sort of way, whether it be physically, emotionally, mentally. And so if we have to like take a simple example of what vulnerability might be, is if you're going through a construction site and there's a bunch of workers around, they all have hammers, or let's even say your house is under construction and people are banging nails into the wall, and there's a lot of nails around the place, and you're not wearing the proper shoes, you're not wearing the proper attire, you're not wearing a helmet. You are allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and you're taking a risk that you might get harmed. Yes, you could go into that space and not step on a nail and not hurt yourself, even if you were wearing sandals that day. You could also step into that house that is under construction and not have a brick or a nail fall onto your head, even if you're not wearing a helmet. There's always that possibility that you will be safe, that no harm comes to you, but you're putting yourself in a position of vulnerability. And that's kind of like an easy way to understand what I mean by vulnerability. Of course, I'm never going to talk about vulnerability simply superficially. Vulnerability goes far beyond the simple fact that your physical body in itself can be vulnerable, but also your spiritual, your entity, the person that you define yourself to be can be also vulnerable in itself, aside from the body, the physical material aspect of what I'm trying to talk about, of the physical material aspect of your body, of vulnerability is what I'm trying to say. So now, in every situation, there are positives and there are negatives. And I like the idea in my channel is I'm always going to try my best to talk about both sides, because I genuinely think that everything is a balance. Too much of anything is bad. Being on one side of anything is bad. There's always bad in every single area. And some people think that you should just choose one side and stick to it. But personally, I think that that's what stops you from allowing yourself to grow, because one does not contradict the other simply because you encompass certain beliefs that may be applied in a different situation, but don't necessarily apply in another situation, because of you're just collecting information to see what's the best solution for whatever situation that you may be in. And I would encourage anyone watching, or anyone in general, that any situation that you go into, don't let your presuppositions, your prejudices, what you believe about the topic or issue influence you or stop you from allowing to look into something deeper, because there is always an opportunity to learn. You can learn from anything and everything and everyone. And I worked in a daycare and I learned so much just from observing children. And so I encourage you to, or even the people who have completely different lifestyles than you, people who do something completely opposite than you, try to learn something from it. Always keep an open mind. It doesn't mean change your views. It just means allow yourself to add information to what you already know. Allow yourself to grow and be knowledgeable. Always try to learn something new is what I'm trying to say, basically. But that's not the point of this video. This point of this video is about vulnerability. So let's get into that. So now, vulnerability. What are the risks of vulnerability? Because I know for some people, just hearing that word just sounds like danger, 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 alarms in their head. No, 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 no. And when you think about like the risk of vulnerability, it means that if we're talking, okay, so if we're talking in the physical aspects, in the physical realm, going into, let's say, a dark space in the middle of the night by yourself, you're making your physical body and space vulnerable to being harmed, vulnerable to being attacked. Going into a cage with a lion, you're making your physical body vulnerable to being attacked, vulnerable to being harmed. But now on the other end, there's being vulnerable with yourself, being vulnerable with your spirit, your energy, your personality, your intellect. To even go into the step of being vulnerable, it means you need to be able to give information, allow people to have access to you in some sort of way. And now what that does, what are the risks of being vulnerable to people and allowing them to have access to the information about you, or having them allowing them to have access to hurting who you are internally, allowing them to judge the person that you are, allowing them to possibly hurt you, betray you, and things like that. And simply speaking, like, I'm being vulnerable by allowing myself to post on social media, by getting out there. And there's all sorts of risks of going on social media. And I'm trying my best to be as authentic as I can. And there's always going to be some people who think that I'm not, and there's always going to be some people who think that I have an agenda. And you can't control what people think, you can't control how people feel. But however I carry myself, however I speak, however I could say the wrong thing, I could have edited the wrong thing, I could have worded things in the wrong way, and then someone takes it and creates their own narrative and starts judging me, backlashing. In this culture nowadays, cancel culture is very real. Like, people do everything they can to put people down and make sure that they're not seen anymore and they don't have a platform and people hate them. I think in regards to that, I think I could have a whole video about that, like, in itself later on. But when it comes to the cancel culture, I would say the only surfacely, if I have to talk about this, cancel culture is only good in a sense where, like, yes, some people do not deserve to have a platform and misuse them, and therefore should not have access to such having such influence on people. So yes, their platforms should be removed. But I think where the issue is, like, people are like, how do we get their platforms removed? How do we make sure that they don't have access to people anymore? How do we make sure that they're not spurring hate? But the thing is, like, the way that people are trying to remove these people from the platforms, they're basically like spewing hate, belittling, degrading, dehumanizing a person for the sake of the mistake that they made. Keep in mind, everyone makes mistakes. No one is perfect. And there's always going to be a moment where people did something that they shouldn't have, but they did it with the knowledge that they have, with the emotions that they felt. But can that mean that the person cannot grow and learn from that? Could that mean that the person could not improve themselves from the mistake that they made, transform them, adjust themselves to be better humans, work on themselves to do better than they did last time? I think making people feel like they're not human because of the mistakes that they have, that they made, with the knowledge that they had, maybe they didn't know better, maybe they didn't even understand the severity in what they're saying. Why don't we try to educate people instead of making them feel like they don't deserve to live? So that's my issue with cancel culture. But I don't know if I'm going to put this in a video, because I might do a whole video about that later on. But then again, that's the risk with me being on social media. Now, another risk is people could criticize my point of views. People could make me out to be crazy and think that, who does she think she is? Or people could think that, like, I should have no voice, and people could think that, you know, the things that I'm saying are incorrect or they're wrong, and I'm going to get the wrong kind of press or the wrong kind of influence on people. There's that risk. There is a risk that I might be having the opposite effect on people than I want to. There's a risk that I could be misrepresenting myself, misrepresenting other people who are like me, whether it be my color of skin, whether it be my age group, whether it be my gender, whether it be my sex. Regardless of that, there is a risk by, let's say, me being on social media and me putting myself out there. I am vulnerable. I am allowing people to have some sort of access to me, because of course what you see is very superficial. Like, this video is heavily edited. You're going to watch this and it's going to be clipped. There's going to be parts that I'm going to add and remove, and there's going to be things that sound effects and things that I'm going to do to make this video more entertaining, more relatable to you, but in some way, by especially the type of content that I'm doing, where I'm like having these sit down conversations and kind of bringing my side of the story, my point of view, and how I see things, I'm putting myself in a vulnerable position where people have access to me and can now make judgment about me, try to put me down, or try to hurt me in some way, emotionally, mentally, not only physically. And of course, there are also physical risks to that. Yes, being vulnerable is a risk. It is something that's quite scary. It's something that requires a lot, and you need, again, please go watch, I think, episode 3, because I'm going to reference this again. Please go watch episode 3. You need to have a strong sense of self to be able to allow yourself to be vulnerable with people. Being vulnerable is very difficult if you have no idea who you are and if you're reliant on how other people react. But go watch episode 3 if you want to know what I mean by having a strong sense of self. On the other hand, and everything that's a risk, you're taking a risk because there's something you can gain from it. So now, what can you gain from being vulnerable? Well, in terms of, if I have to relate it back to social media, then by being vulnerable on social media and doing what I am doing, one, I get to now perform something that I get to now be a part of, something that I think is a part of my purpose. I get to now do something that I think I enjoy, that I love, that I'm passionate about. I get to now have an influence on people. I get to now maybe relate to one person who needed to hear what I said today, who needed that advice, who maybe didn't understand what I was talking about and needed someone to put the pieces together for them. Maybe they needed somebody to remind them of that. Who's to say that maybe this project, which, by the way, this is just this journey is a journey that's going to lead to many, many things. This is just the beginning of many. And it's just to say that, like, maybe just putting myself like out there and vulnerable on social media will allow me to now create or build the other businesses, empires, the other projects that I have in mind that I think are way bigger than YouTube, that I think are way bigger than just this platform. And how do I allow myself, but possibly just by allowing myself to be vulnerable and allowing people to have access to me, relate to me, talk to me, maybe even criticize me, maybe even hate me, maybe even go against what I'm saying, but still allowing myself to have that opportunity to be the person that I want to be. This could be my ticket to maybe other projects that I have, maybe other opportunities that I would like to do to make this channel what I dream for it to be. So now, if I talk, now this is like very like surface level, but if I'm like, mainly why this conversation is something that I think is lingering for me, because in relationships that I've had, in the relationships that I've seen around me, I find that vulnerability is very scary for a lot of people. And I think that I find that to be quite disorienting. I find it to be quite sad, because I, for myself, personally, I think there's such beauty in being... Anyways, let me not talk about myself yet. So vulnerability in relationships, I find, has been difficult from what I've noticed, because there's that fear that the person may betray you, might break your heart, might hurt you, might do something that you can't even fathom. Because vulnerability means you need to remove those walls. You need to let those walls down. You need to let the person have access to you. And if they have access to you, they have access to now harm you. For example, if I have to like give you an example to help you visualize what I'm trying to say, is like, let's say you have your best friend and you now give them your house key, and you might trust them, but what you're now doing is that you're giving them access to all of your most valuable things. You're giving them access to your life, because who knows what they would do to you while you're asleep. You're giving them access to you at any time, at any point. But what does that access do? By giving them that key, there's a reason why you gave them that house key. You gave them that house key because if there's an emergency, you need them to be able to get inside. You need them to have direct access to you to know how to help you. Let's say there is an emergency and then you call for help. How are they supposed to get into the house? If you're laying down on the floor and you've now fainted, or something happened to you that was quite tragic and you needed urgent care, and you called them instead of the emergencies. It was nothing that severe, but severe enough. And you called the emergencies, and you called your friend. And now your friend needs to come to you, but you can't go open the door to them. They can't come and they don't have access to you. They don't have an opening because you kept every entrance closed. You kept every gate closed, whether it be the front door, the back door, the garden, the window, even the tools that they might be able to use in case of an emergency that you could have left out for them. Even if you could have left them breadcrumbs, like let's say a hammer by chance on the floor, just in case they couldn't find anything to get into the house, at least they had that to get in there and help you. But now, in this case, they don't. So now they can't come and help you. Now they don't have access to you. And this was a very real world example in this, but is meant to kind of relate to you in a more personal level, emotional level, vulnerable level. Everybody has things that they're struggling with. Everybody has things that are hurting them. And the truth is, everybody wants connection. Whether we put walls up, whether we try to protect ourselves, whether I say to you, like, I don't want to hear what you have to say. I don't want you to know anything about me. I don't want you to know how you can hurt me. But at the end of the day, you want that person to see you. You want people to love you. You want people that you know you can trust. And the point I'm trying to make by that story is that how can people now help you when you need them? How can people now support you? How can people now be there for you in your times of need if you don't give them a key to enter? How can people have access to you if they don't know how to have access to you? How can people help you if they don't know how to help you? If they don't know anything about you to help? If they don't even know you need help? Imagine that you fell down on the ground and you're like saying to them, oh, I'm in pain and this and this and that. And it's actually quite severe. But because you brush things off and you don't let people in, you don't let people see you vulnerable, they're not going to help you. So you're going to lay there and suffer. You're going to now struggle because you didn't allow that person in. You didn't allow that person to have access to you, to be able to support you and help you. You need to give some people the key. Not everyone deserves that kind of trust. Not everyone deserves to have that key. But to now completely stop it, to completely say that no one deserves to have the key because you can never know or never be sure that anyone is that trustworthy. No one can know anything. You can never know for sure that a person will not betray you. And that's the whole meaning of vulnerability. You're taking a risk. You're allowing people that chance to get close to you, to be there for you, to support you, to love you. And yes, there are people who have the wrong intentions. There are people who don't go in it for the right reasons. And if you got a bad experience, let that be a lesson. Be more perceptive, be more insightful, be more vigilant when you're moving and taking turns and before making any decisions. But that doesn't mean don't allow people to still hurt you again. It means that give people that chance to prove to you that they weren't going to betray you. Because there are some people out there who have the right intentions, who their only goal is to be there for you, support you. Their only scheme, the only threat that they have to you is that they'll care about you too much, that they will never let you drown, that they'll do everything for you to know that they're there to support you in the worst of times. And that's the beauty of vulnerability. Because the beauty of vulnerability means that you're allowing yourself to get more than you could give yourself. You're allowing yourself to have people be a part of you, to share that parts of you, to allow people to embrace you, to celebrate you, for you to be yourself and to dance in it. You know, vulnerability is a risk. Vulnerability is asking a lot. And some people take advantage of that when people are being vulnerable. But I don't think that vulnerability in itself is the wrong thing, because if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, that one person, even the 10 people who may have betrayed you, that one person who will not betray you, you're not allowing them in. You're not allowing them to have access to you. You're not allowing them to be there for you the way that you deserve to be supported, to be loved, to be cared for, to be cherished. Because every single person deserves that. To get another visual of what I mean by taking that risk, to have a better understanding fundamentally, to take the example that I'm about to give you and relate it to your interpersonal relationships. For the people who have a harder time taking real world examples and relating it back to maybe your own personal experience that might not be directly correlated, but simply like the concept is there, I will try to reiterate myself after, as I normally do. But for this for this example that I'm going to give you a visual of what I'm trying to say, is that we have police officers, we have firefighters, and these are jobs that, truthfully speaking, have so much risk in them. Personally, I know we need these people, but if I had to know that one of my loved ones were doing that job, it would scare me so much, because I know you are basically risking your life for that job. You are basically putting yourself out there to be hurt, you're just allowing yourself to be damaged, to be broken. But the beauty so police officers are taking a risk, and there's things that they see, there's things that they experience that, because they now see it, it affects how they see life. It affects them. It affects how they perceive relationships. They live some traumatic experiences secondhand, just from having to observe them, just to have to go through them, or even they go through traumatic experiences themselves, being in a situation where they're constantly putting themselves at risk. But now, what are the benefits of them putting themselves at risk? One, before I even get to the benefits, while they're taking that risk, they're not just going like, oh yeah, I'm a police officer, and because we need to protect the country, we need to solve all these crimes, and we need to make sure there's no danger, I'm just gonna go out there and I'm just gonna do whatever I want, because that's what's gonna get me, that's what we need in this world. I'm just gonna go out there and take that risk. But they don't have any training, they don't have any protective gear. Same we could say about firefighters. But a person who understands the risks, a person who understands the flaws and the issues, and what can come with, there was a wasp, what can come with being in a field like that, you are going to do intense training. And I guess like even just to become a police officer, I'm just speaking, but there is intense training, but you go through intense training, and then you have to wear gear. What is it called? Those vests. I forget the name. But you need to wear a vest while you're working. You have all of these extra tools on you in case of those situations. And then they have to wear and run and carry all of those things with them while they're out taking those risks. So they have the tools that they need in case of an emergency. They have the tools that they need in case they encounter something that they know could be harmful to them. They know how to react to those situations. They know how to respond to those situations.
Okay. Do not mind the setup change. Do not mind the lighting change. We're just gonna keep going. Maybe I'll reiterate in the next video this situation, but just to continue with what I was saying, they know what they're signing up for, and that there are risks to any situation, especially if you're putting yourself in a position where you're vulnerable. You need to make sure that you're well-informed, well-trained, well-prepared for those kinds of situations. But now, what are the possible gains from having these firefighters taking risks, having these firefighters going onto the field and defending us and taking care of us, and risking their own lives for the sake of many? There are lots of people who are now in prison. The roads are able to be maintained. People are able to be safe, more or less. Whether we appreciate the police and firefighters or not, without them, there would be way, way, way more chaos than we'd like to admit. And so somebody has to do the job, correct? Right. And so there are many gains from them being that vulnerable and taking that risk. Now, the whole point of this analogy was to get you to think about how you should approach your situations, how you should approach vulnerability, and why it might be good and why it might be bad. It's just to get you to question, like, are you being sufficiently vulnerable? Because without vulnerability, there's generally, from vulnerability, higher risk of vulnerability usually most oftentimes results in higher reward, and that reward might not be directly you, or sometimes it might be indirectly, which in the case of police officers and firefighters, they're doing it for the purpose of others, and there is still a benefit to the work that they do. Being vulnerable is stressful, it's scary, and it's not something that we all want to do. But when you're approaching vulnerability, how have I approached vulnerability? Vulnerability, I would say, for the most part, because I believe in being yourself. I believe in acting like yourself. I believe that you shouldn't be afraid to showcase the person that you are. And so, for generally speaking, I prefer being vulnerable. I prefer showing signs of vulnerability. But sometimes it's scary. Sometimes it's difficult to let people have that much access to you, to take a risk of falling, to take a risk that people may judge you, exile you, make you feel less than you are. And there have been times, if you've watched my last video, you will understand why I've maybe held back from being vulnerable. And vulnerability can be, it's something that I've kind of tiptoed around, particularly in the last couple of years as I was seeking to find myself. But I found that what that allowed me to do was to explore the world authentically, and I bring that back because I will always keep bringing back the subject of purpose. But being vulnerable allows me to know, to explore this world honestly, to see where my part is, to attach myself, to be more. I've approached vulnerability in the sense of I will allow you to have access to me, but I'm going to move cautiously. It means don't air everything. It doesn't mean give people the ability to crush you. Actually, I'm just gonna try to wrap up this video because I'll maybe try to go better in depth later on in future videos, just because I've had to like pause on filming this video. But what I want, the main focus and main message of this was, when you approach vulnerability, you should be approaching it from a place of peace. When you approach... Yeah, I obviously don't know what happens to the rest of the footage. You can see that I was having a hard time with the ending, but yeah, just approach it with peace. And I wasn't able to explain my side of vulnerability because I feel as though I'm already trying to be vulnerable and was expressing that throughout the video. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. This is journey of life, and you guys see the hiccups and the different stages of everything that I'm doing. So this was just the early stages, but I'm very hopeful that things will get better. But don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on your post notifications, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Thank you.